pledge allegiance to our flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Agenda adjustments.
We do not need 10.1 at this point, so I don't know if we want to strike it or just take no action on it.
We either strike it or we can just go without a motion in a second and it'll just pass over it. Or probably the cleaner way is just to go and approve now the agenda adjustment to strike it. So if I get any objections, all those in favor? Thank you. All right, consideration of the minutes. A motion, please, to approve the minutes of the September 22, 2021 Board of Directors meeting, please. Been moved by Vicki. Seconded. Any corrections, discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstention, or is that opposed or abstention?
I can't hear you.
Is it opposed or an abstention?
No, I apologize.
You oppose it?
Yes.
Good. All right, public comments. So this is a time when we open the floor to the public who would like to make comments. It's normally particularly about agenda items. There's not many of them on the floor tonight. We also do allow comments to be made on school-related issues. I remind everybody it is not a time to make derogatory comments towards any member of the board, staff, teachers, other parents, or other people. It's a time to go and discuss an issue in the school. In order to allow the board to complete its business, which is pretty light tonight, I must say, the chair will reserve the right to limit the discussion. There's not that many people here. I don't know how many are going to speak. If you could raise your hand, give me an idea. How many plan on speaking? So I got 5 here, 6. I don't see anybody on Zoom. Nobody has joined us in the waiting room. So I would like to allow like 3 minutes each. That should give you enough time to get your point across. And then we will be able to move on to other business. So at this time, I will open the floor to public comments. And when you come up, I need you to announce who you are and what town you're from, if you're, so we know which board member up here is your representative. Or if you're not from the town, well, it really is for our residents. So who wants to be first? All right, Larry.
It's me. I'm Larry Gowell. I'm a resident of the town of Litchfield. I've been an employee for RSU4 for a day or two. Got some big concerns. As everyone knows, the wife and I are going to retire in December. That's 2 more people out of transportation. Transportation's hurting drastically. I apologize. I just can't do it anymore. I mean, I've got too many other things to do, but I heard the other day somebody said, we're all set. We don't need any more bus drivers. There was a comment from somebody from the board, somebody said. I wanted to make sure that everyone on the board knows we don't have bus drivers. We had a little spell. I begged the guy to come back out of retirement. So he's driving right now while Paul's out. 2 more applications we interviewed. They was all ready to come on board until they saw what we was paying for wages. And then they just, I'm begging you guys to get this negotiations moving forward. I would like to have a few weeks with somebody just to try to help them understand what I do. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. Glenn is taking an interest. He's trying to do everything he can. But there's a lot to what I do every day.
All right, appreciate it. I certainly appreciate it, I think, as every board member does.
Yeah, it isn't that. It's the frustration I know what's gonna happen to get people coming here. You all know what's gonna happen when they're paying $17, $18 an hour to go to work for Subway. I mean, you're looking at a job here and a job there, and you're looking, there's a $3 an hour starting pay difference. You guys are in trouble. And I feel part of that team. We're in trouble. So, I just had to say it. I mean, I don't want to leave you guys in a bind, but I have to. Hopefully, things will get straightened out and we'll get moving.
Thank you for your comments. For public, negotiations are ongoing. They have been ongoing for a while. We can't discuss negotiations, so really can't respond too much about what you said, as you well know, Larry. But I appreciate your comments, and I really appreciate the service that your family has provided to the school system for more years than I've been here. And it has been discussed, but I don't think anybody's said that I know of that we had enough bus drivers.
There's no doubt it's been discussed, and I heard that, and everyone knows it.
I imagine it would. All right, who would like to speak next, please?
Hi, I'm Temperance Trepanier, a 7th grader at Oak Hill Middle School.
In which town do you live in, please?
Sabattis.
Sabattis, thank you.
I'm standing here today to talk about universal masking. I don't agree with it because it can make you sick from breathing in your own bacteria for 7 hours a day. And for people like me, like myself, it is hard to breathe in them for that long. It is also causing asthma attacks. It is also very difficult to focus when we're trying to learn because they are very distracting. We also aren't giving mask breaks, and if we ask for one, some teachers seem to have an issue with it. I completely understand that kids in younger grades don't mind wearing masks because they don't know any differently, but us older kids in higher grades do mind wearing them. According to a search today on American Academy of Pediatrics website, childhood deaths due to COVID are astronomically small. In states reporting 0.0% to 0.03% of all child COVID-19 cases result in death. There is a small fraction of a possibility that a child who contracts COVID at school could die. It is much more likely that a child traveling to and from school will get killed in a vehicle accident. But yet we keep transporting our kids to school, right? And buses don't even have seat belts. Why do I have to wear a mask to protect me from something that likely won't kill me? Yet I can come to school on a bus without seat belts. Seatbelt use in passenger vehicles saved an estimated 14,955 lives in 2017. It is hypocritical to say you want to protect children from harm, but yet only protect them from very specific types of harm. Life is all about risks and taking chances. Some of us take big risks, some of us take small ones. While I am still a minor, it is up to my parents the kind of risks they wish to take for my safety and well-being. It should be their choice, not yours. Since the risk of me dying from COVID is infinitesimal at best, and you cannot deny the science behind that statement, I believe the mask mandate is not about my safety, but about control. As a student in this district, I want to take back control of my education. Reverse the mask mandate. Thank you for listening to what I have to say. I hope you take into consideration what myself and my fellow peers have to say and their concerns as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please. No other speakers? A little closer? I thought it was loud enough, but okay, sorry.
Good evening. Nathan Lilly, Litchfield. Hi, Vicki. So, I didn't come prepared tonight, but I just want to make a few questions or statements. Monday or Tuesday, we received a phone call that my child was a close contact and they could not partake in after-school sports due to the program that was laid out. And I watched the school board video, and that's how it was explained. And I'm pretty confident in that because that's what the nurse called my wife, another teacher, and that was their understanding. Yet, I swung by and spoke to Mr. Ben Wilson, and after a few moments of conversation, it was revealed that that is not in fact the case. It is actually up to the parents' discretion.
Please direct
So
your
they do
comments to
not-
the board, Chair, please.
So they do not have to avoid communities and sports. That is not the case. And yet, that's how it was laid out to everybody in this community. Was it not? As far as you just mentioned, sir, addressing the board, after watching many of the videos of you guys, the board meetings and stuff on YouTube, it became apparently clear that somebody who sits off to the side usually and has a lot of input on what we do here under Andrew Carlton. Kathy, good evening. I'm really curious as to why somebody who's not sitting on this board has such a hard drive on what the rest of us do and what is done by this board in front of me. Just again, people making votes to mask our children. Christy, you voted for this. Yet why do you keep showing up to parent pickup without a mask and you come underneath the overhang when it's raining unmasked?
Sir, please
teachers have
address
to
the
wear a
chair.
mask. I'm
We're not to
addressing
make- we're
the
not
board,
supposed-
sir. I'm addressing the board. And finally, sir, you. And you, Mr. Carlton. I yet to hear you speak. I yet to hear your position on a lot of these things. You let everybody else run around and do it. Seems you're too preoccupied writing little love notes on snow days, which we cannot do remote learning anymore. Which is ironic because if a child is a close contact, and I'm doing my best due diligence, side note, co-owner of a medical calibration company, so I'm very well aware of all the science. I'm not going to play mask, no mask. This is for everybody to unite together. So why is there no remote option? If everybody here is in such concern for their children, for the sake of their children, for the health of their children, why are you sending your kids to school with such a deadly virus? I mean, at this point, places across the country are holding other parents in contempt for not having a vaccine, yet you're going to send your child in such dangerous, harmed way?
Well, 30 seconds, sir.
I'm finished. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else?
My name is Jennifer Hill. I'm a resident of Litchfield. Just want to start off by giving you a number. There are 10 to the 15, that's a pretty big number, viruses in your body right now. There are 10 to the 31 viruses, astronomical number, on the ground you walk on, in the air you breathe, in the water all around you. And yet everybody is so concerned with one little virus where if you just would have shut your TVs off and just gone about your business, you would have not seen any difference at all. You guys are all using the PCR test to determine if you need to be segregated, isolated, your kids from, school, sports. But if anybody has researched the PCR test, it is not FDA approved. As soon as this emergency act goes away, there will be no PCR test to determine if there's a positive case, which you guys are all using. So far, kids have depression from this. They are in fear from masking. You're threatening students with suspension for asking for wanting to breathe fresh air. I have, to give you as well, numerous studies which show how masks are ineffective. We have one from the CDC showing a study of masking. 85% who wore masks 100% of the time contracted COVID. 3.9% never wore masks. Another study, there's no clear reduction in respiratory viral infection with use of masks. Another study, 3 trials with 2,106 participants, no difference in infection rate between masked and unmasked. Another study, 1,453 patients, no difference in infection rates. Another study, marginally beneficial in protecting individuals from particles greater than 2.5 microns. The COVID is 0.125 microns, so no benefit. Another study shows effectiveness with 95% particles above 5 microns. Again, COVID, 0.125, no protection. Another study, surgical masks may be adequate to remove bacteria exhaled or expelled, but may not be sufficient to remove sub-micrometer size aerosols containing pathogens. COVID-19, not effective. As far as exercising with masks on may reduce available oxygen and increase air trapping, preventing substantial carbon dioxide exchange. The hypercapnic hypoxia may potentially increase acidotic environment, cardiac overload, anaerobic metabolism, and renal overload. You guys are forcing kids to wear masks in gym. You're forcing kids to wear masks all last sports season. I assume you probably will again with basketball season. So you're harming children with these masks. There's another study, limited evidence that masks reduce the risk of spreading any viral infections. Another one, use of face masks either by infected or non-infected persons. There is no significant effect of transmission. If you guys would actually research and look at studies that are done instead of your own ideology of what is going on out there, you may
3 minutes,
actually
ma'am.
find
Could you
that
wrap up,
masks have
please?
no benefit. What you're doing is pretty much socially accepted child abuse by putting masks on these children day after day after day, 7 days a
Ma'am,
week,
your time is up, please.
5 days a week, 7 hours a day. I urge you to reconsider. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Megan. I live in Litchfield. I homeschool 2 of my children I've already pulled from this district. I have one back. He attends Oak Hill High School. He's a sophomore. We enrolled him. We are allowing you to educate this one child with the idea of the color system. Your last vote to universally mask all of the US RSU4 children on Wednesday, but not requiring masking of all schools, from what I understand, until days later, the following Monday. When mandating a medical intervention on other people's children, children with a very low mortality rate to this virus, you violate the medical freedom of every child in this district under the guise of public health. Interestingly, many of you are seen at gowls, at community events, local gas stations, unmasked. You feel so passionately to do this to kids 7 to 8 hours a day, but don't feel so passionately for yourself. Nationwide, schools are receiving state and federal funding for universal masking. Are you aware of this? Is RSU4 receiving federal or state funds to universally mask these children? We have a right to know. 4 months ago, my child acquired a bacterial infection from wearing a mask. It's documented. As you're out unmasked, or maybe masked, in the community, look at the faces of these kids, the sores, the pimples. Think clearly about your vote and what you chose. Every single one of you that voted to cover the faces and airways of these children are responsible and liable for the damage you're causing on these children. Many high school children, and I'm speaking for mine, but all of them as well, see through the politics. How can they not? The world's crazy. So at a time when children need compassion more than ever, you've implemented a cat and mouse game to high school kids for breathing fresh air. There's no scheduled mask breaks at the high school with a 7 to 8 hour bus ride. The reason I know this is my son received a detention in the first week. This was mandated by you, by your vote. His mask is always down. He doesn't like to ask another individual for his right to breathe. The vice principal of the high school called my home, and her words when I asked about mask breaks, I wrote it down. Mask breaks at the high school are at the teacher's discretion. There is no definitive timeline schedule in place for them. My child is pulled from class for his mask down. He's not a behavior problem. He's choosing air. It's a cat and mouse game. The school's job is to educate. Do you see what you've caused here with this vote? My child was pulled from class again last week. He was non-compliant when he was
30
told by his
seconds,
bus driver that he had to put hand sanitizer on his hand, a chemical that causes cancer. He asked the principal if it was, vice principal, if it was school policy. She said yes, he was issued a bus slip. The head of transportation informed us this is not a policy. Interrupted education, lecture, discipline, call home to me, punitive, you decide. And I already pulled 2 kids from this district. If I need an extra minute before I pull my third, I'd appreciate it. I'm currently giving Alice in Wonderland lessons to one of my children. I'm sure you're familiar with the white rabbit, the time. 1 minute, 1 minute. If any administrator is going to pull a child,
time's up,
especially
ma'am.
mine, to the office after a school policy, they better be sure that policy is in fact accurate. These cat and mouse games you're a part of, you voted with science-based decisions, but we're going to start it on Monday.
Ma'am, please.
My child served his detention for not asking permission to breathe. Children alone appear to be the only ones accountable for the disruption in education, medical issues, or disciplinary action for the policies you voted for, or lack of school policies, clearly. Please keep us all posted on any state or federal funds you are receiving in RSU4 for putting universal masking on our children. Thank you.
Any others? Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Abigail Gervais. I'm from Sabatis. I'm a 7th grader at Oak Hill Middle School. I came here to talk about why I think that masks should be optional. I think this because if the coronavirus will not kill us, the masks will. All that I am doing is breathing the same carbon dioxide all day. Also, your children do the same thing, and probably you do too. Have you ever thought to yourself, does my child want to wear a mask all day? How does this affect them? Does it make them comfortable? Or are you just doing this for yourself and not caring what your kids want? With the survival rate over 99% in some countries downgrading coronavirus to the flu, I think that it's time to stop the mask mandate at school. I thought this was a free country, so stop controlling us to wear masks and let us choose what we want, if we want or don't want to wear masks.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
My daughter would like to say a few words first.
My name is Adriana Smith, and I'm a resident of Sabatis. I'm an 8th grader, and I have been in this school district since kindergarten. Our country stands for freedom, but you having us force us to wear a mask as a mandate is not giving us our freedom that we deserve and that our country stands for. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jennifer Smith. I reside in Sabatis. I'm going to start off with most people here are aware that I've been organizing peaceful protests that don't require the police being called on us lately against these mask mandates, fighting for my child and all of our rights for freedom and choices, not mandates. And I'll preempt to the rest of this. I will talk as fast as possible to be under your time frame. However, if I am a bit over, I'd appreciate the chance to finish without obnoxious yelling from an adult that I'm at my time. A simple hand gesture is respectful enough. I timed it, should be approximately 3 minutes if I'm not interrupted. And I apologize for the shaking. I'm very anxious and I can't breathe in this mask. I do want to say that nothing that I say or have done or these protests has to do with anything to do with our schools or our staff members. I think they are absolutely phenomenal people. They do amazing with our students. I'm extremely disappointed with the issues in the board, especially from Mr. English. I commend our schools on asking the kids' opinions on the mask mandate. Our kids are intelligent and have voices and opinions. They shouldn't be silenced. I know I'm not the only one raising my child to stand up for herself, have her own opinion, and it's her body, her choice. First thing that I have to ask is why are all of the bylaws for RSU4 not accessible to the community, like the work of Code of Ethics, Code of Conduct? They're not able to be pulled up on the website.
This is your time for your comments, ma'am.
Perfect. So I will request it in writing from the state then. So I am not here to belittle or speak negatively of anyone personally, or bicker or raise my voice to anyone, as I've seen numerous times done by a member of this board who was supposed to be setting a great example for our kids. I was raised better than that, by vets who fought for our country and for our rights. A lot of parents, staff member, teachers have reached out to me to either thank me or to agree with me, and a lot of them can't stand up because you control their livelihoods and their jobs. I'm not here to say no masks. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't, you don't. I thought we still lived America. These mandates are unconstitutional, and you as a board do not have the right to take away my child's rights because of your personal and political opinions. You are here to help educate our children, not make decisions for them. That's the parent's job. Over the past few days, weeks, I have watched and rewatched every one of the board meetings and CPT meetings, and I can say I'm genuinely disgusted at some of the things that I have heard. I'm curious, how much funding is the government giving this district to universally mask and pool test our kids? Because Mr. English, you stated on a CPT meeting, you weren't. A test, by the way, that my pulmonary specialist, because I have interstitial lung disease, which is why it's really hard to breathe in these things, says that that Binax test and PCR test is inaccurate. She won't accept it if I take it for a negative COVID test, and she has 6 PhDs. I would request a copy of it in writing. I would like to know their dollar amount each of our child's freedom is worth to this board. It should be optional and a choice. I'm requesting that it be put back on the agenda and discussed with the CPT team again, this time without Mr. English being part of the CPT discussion. It meets the exact definition of a conflict of interest. You cannot ethically create a plan that you are then going to be voting on becoming policy. Ruins the checks and balances of the entire voting system. There's a really great book, Ethics 101. Author is Brian Boone. Some people should touch up reading on it. Considering the CP team was discussing options and choices
Ma'am,
for the beliefs of our
the
families,
hand
thoughts,
opportunity
and
didn't
rights
work.
until you shut everyone down. You personally shut everyone down. When one of the members says, and I quote, "What do you want, Bob?" It is very clear this was not a collaborative planning team decision or planned from a collective group of very intelligent minds, but a
Ma'am.
decision of yours. You have been
Go
pushing
over
for
your 3
universal
minutes.
masking from the first CPT meeting months ago. Do you feel powerful that you essentially strong-armed the rest of the team? It was pretty disgusting to have my kid watch. I'm trying to teach and raise her right and with manners, and she watches the chair behave like a 4-year-old bickering with adults. And they are administrators that are actually in our schools with our kids every day.
All right, ma'am, you're way
I am-
over your time.
I understand that. I'm almost done. If I wasn't shaking so much and coughing, then I would have already been done. I appreciate it. I'm very sorry for the tragic loss of your son. It is very heartbreaking to me. It truly is. My condolences. I do hope that my twins that I lost are up in heaven, keeping your son some company. But it is also completely unprofessional, unethical, disrespectful, and immoral that every meeting you bring up his death as soon as anybody has a difference in opinion from you, and you shut everybody else down because your son tragically died to a misfortune. I am really sorry, but you are using that tragedy to control and intimidate people with fear. Do you know anyone who has ever died in a car crash? I do. I still drive. Do you know anyone that's ever had a miscarriage? I did. I don't tell people to not get pregnant because there's more of a chance of having a miscarriage than there is dying from COVID. I could go on, but I've been told numerous times I'm over my time. Next time I will provide more COVID facts that some of this board clearly isn't reading and isn't removing your personal and political opinions. You're only seeing from one-sided political nature. If you can't listen to differences, opinions, different ideas, know how the school works. I mean, Mr. English, you didn't know the 5th grade moved to the middle school, or that classes move around, or that nurses have access to the database for vaccines, and you had the audacity to say that people are just going to lie. It is pretty judgmental with no facts. How can you effectively, knowledgeably, and intelligently participate in creating plans for our children? For the chair on this board, I would have expected you to have a little more knowledge on the schools you are making policies for. Or is it a power trip? Or are you too busy and can't commit the true energy needed with all the other boards you are on as well, not related to RSU4? You are supposed to be coming into this neutral and unbiased. Are you truly so focused on only what you believe that you can't focus on anyone else's thoughts or opinions and facts? An ethical leader leads people with understanding the core value of every member in the
Ma'am,
organization.
you're way over.
I'm on my last sentence. And we, the community, our kids, our teachers, we're the organization you're supposed to be serving.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Are there anyone else? Any other comments? Have we had anybody on Zoom yet?
No one.
No on Zoom. So in that case, then we will move on. Petitions and communications.
I have none this evening.
Report, superintendent's report.
Yes, so I wanted to update you. We'll be talking about it at Finance and Facilities at the next meeting, but we did meet with the members of the team from CHA Architects this week. They went through, met with some administrators, some directors, asking questions about programming, space, and things like that for the middle school edition. At some point, Kathy Kogan, who is part of that team at CHA, will be coming to Finance Facilities and coming to the board, so that's pretty exciting to have that process in place. I wanted to update you too that our student count, Norma Jean and I pulled the student count today. We are at 1422. Oh, I apologize. Yeah. So our student count currently stands at 1422, which is about 111 students over where we were at this time last year. Let's see, I did meet with the new town manager in Sabattis last week, 2 weeks ago, and actually talked to him on the phone today. He's got some tough work ahead of him, but I'm looking forward to a relationship, a professional relationship with him like I had with the former town manager. I did want to let you all know too, currently Sabattis Police Department is down officers. They're currently functioning with, I believe, 3 officers at this point. I did have a conversation with Androscoggin County about potentially offering us support. They are not in a place to do that right now unless we're willing to take on the cost of a full officer, full car, full gear, things like that. So hopefully, after meeting with the new town manager, they're going to be able to put some things in place to reinstall the SRO position when they have more staff. If you go to our website, I did have to report staff vaccination statistics this week. Those statistics are up there, and the COVID dashboard has been updated. That concludes my report.
Any questions?
I do have one appointment, Jason Donovan, custodian at Sabatis Primary School, and a resignation, Sarah Landry, and Ed Tech 3 from Carrie Ricker.
All right, thank you. Kathy, Director CAI report.
All right, I just have 3 things, so thank you for giving me some time tonight. Just wanted to report our homeschool. So last year, we continuously reported our homeschool numbers. We are at 129, which is about 60 less than last year. I also wanted to let you know about our homeless population. So I am the McKinney-Vento liaison. So I just wanted to let you know that our eligibility for our students this year, I have deemed more students eligible in September than I have all of last year and all of the year before. So some of those numbers are also students that reside in RSU4 but actually go to school in other schools. So we actually have to pay half of the transportation for those students. There are opposite. We have kids that reside in other districts and come to RSU4. Again, we're paying for half the transportation. I will say transportation, as you've heard Larry say, we use a private transportation agency, and we are strapped. So most of the time, if students live in RSU4, we do AM transportation, and if they live in the other district, we'll do PM. I've currently been not able to provide some transportation to our homeless population. We're trying to do priorities, but of course, when we're having trouble with the 1,400 and something, it's a challenge with the homeless. We do have students, so fortunately with COVID, students get free breakfast and lunch. Under McKinney-Vento, they would get those services anyway. But we are providing services like counseling. We worked on birth certificates and other legal documents that they need. We do a lot of different food pantries and other counseling services outside as well. We help them with oil, other things like that, as much as we can, and we do have a program. I did write a grant this past September. We will find out to help with that transportation cost and maybe even get a van or a van driver to help with some of that transportation. So I'll keep you in the loop if we get the grant. So the other thing, one of our goals at the beginning of the year was joy. So I'm going to share with you a slideshow at the end of the evening of some pictures. I really wasn't sure of all of the photo releases of all the students in there. So I just wanted to kind of share some of the highlights of joy that have happened in September. There was a lot of things that were going really well that I think sometimes we don't always celebrate. So we obviously welcomed many new students, as Andy alluded to, and many new staff. And so we had some really great welcoming events for them. We created codes with kids and vision. We released butterflies when they got out of their chrysalis. We tie-dyed t-shirts for What Are You Reading on Mondays? We had homecoming challenges. I even got on the top of a pyramid. There is pictures, so there's proof. We had dances, we had games, we built relationships with each other. They had debates. We even had book studies with our staff, and we tested kids. So we tested them locally, and we're currently working on the MEA test right now. There are a lot of good things happening in our schools, and we need to keep reminding ourselves about that joy. So I would like to continue to share those joyful moments each month and kind of share all the good things that are happening in RSU4, but it's because of everyone around here, not because of me. So it's a team effort. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Robbie?
Kathy, some of the services that we're offering homeless, does that include healthcare, dental services, and whatever they might need, or?
Yeah, so if they're an unaccompanied youth, so we do have students that are not living with their parent, there's actually forms that I fill out to give them some medical release so they could actually make some medical decisions for themselves. We do help provide, we fill out Medicare or Medicaid applications. So we're doing a lot of those kind of things depending on what the parents and the child needs. For students that are in high school, we do track that. Their senior year, I do write a FAFSA letter, so I track all those 4 years. This is my 4th year in it. I'm usually good about going back and checking their FAFSA forms so they can get free tuition, to not be an inhibitor for them to be able to go to college.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. No financial report this time. I believe administrators' reports, principal data? Or, yeah, administrators' reports. What happened to that?
Data reports. Oh, it's on the next page.
I know,
Somehow it photocopied.
yeah, weird, principal, not administrator.
Yeah.
All right, that's a new one.
It's fall, probably not, but we're gonna try. While he's getting that slideshow up, I just wanted to add one quick comment. I assume I'm speaking for Mr. Aliberti and Mr. Wilson and their staff, but I want to say a quick thank you to the community for the generous token of appreciation at Friday's workshop day. I don't know if you don't follow social media, there was quite a raising of money, like around $700 for coffee, donuts, apples. They were delivered to every single school, including gluten-free options for the few staff that we have that couldn't have the regular donuts. It was very thoughtful. It really added to the day full of really great reading training, jump rope setup, data card updating, and grade level team meetings in Litchfield anyway. It was a great pick-me-up while that work was taking place, and I haven't seen the staff that excited in quite a while. So I want to thank anybody that supported that in any way at all. We appreciated that. So I'm going to go through our data really quickly, and then I'll read through some of the ways that we're looking to improve this. So I was asked about the sea of green. It's fall, so we're hoping for a bigger sea of green as we move throughout the year. Here is our pre-K early literacy information. So this is reading and a little bit of math, but they are combined, so it's kind of hard to drill down a ton with this data because they're mixed. But this is what we have for pre-K. There is a lot of green, but there's also quite a bit of yellow and a little bit too much red. So we've got some goals to work on through the rest of the school year for pre-K. And kindergarten is the same. Andy.
For information, because we have people that I don't think have tuned in during other board meetings when this data was presented.
Yes.
So if we can make sure that it makes it understandable for those who might be watching on YouTube or in the audience that's not familiar, so what the colors are and what we're actually tracking, please.
Yeah, so they kind of go from right to left, from the lowest to highest. Red is far below grade level. We would be looking at students who might need to be referred for an IEP or something along those lines. Title I, we would start with interventions before we get there, but that's the lowest percentile that they would be in. And then yellow would be better than that, but still below that percentile. Blue is getting much closer. So we would do different levels of response to intervention for those different color codes. And then green is at or above the expected benchmark for that grade level. Thank you, Bob. So here's kindergarten, same test again. It's mostly reading with a little bit of math thrown in, but there's no way to really separate that in this report, unfortunately. It's just the way that the STAR test is done. So again, there is a lot of green there for after a hybrid year last year. We have a large percentage of students who did not attend pre-K, so this is okay in the fall to see that nice green bar. So it'll help us as we differentiate for our students working in those response intervention groups and whatnot. To do some more enrichment types of things with that group, and then work on, again, a big bar full of yellow there and some red. So we'll work to group students accordingly based on that data. And that's it, right? My 2 slides for Libby Tozier. It's a little different this year without first and second. So some of the things that we're doing at Libby Tozier, we have ed tech support with all of our kindergarten classrooms as well as pre-K. The ed techs with kindergarten are working on first sound fluency and working on interventions with small groups based on this fall data. So we've already used this in grade level team meetings. Part of that was on Friday. There's a lot of that happening at our PLG time. The ed techs have been trained to administer the early mathematics diagnostic interview. Every student was given this one-on-one interview. Teachers are using that data to help create small groups for specific skill instruction in the classroom. We'll also use this to identify which groups those ed techs will support above and beyond what the teachers are doing with those kiddos. We have an essentials classroom at kindergarten, which supports both math and reading. That class has less students than others, which allows a higher student-teacher ratio. School-wide, we're working with families to support reading at home. There are monthly themed reading logs and literacy coach newsletters. We have a new program called Really Great Reading, which focuses on phonics. We've had quite a bit, Kathy could share that data a little better than me, but there's been a lot of history with our reading scores impacted by a lack of a phonics program and instruction, and I know Mr. Wilson can speak to that a bit more as he sees that at the middle school level. So we're really pushing that phonics instruction this year. We're finding highly engaging ways of incorporating reading activities. Pre-K does a lot of music and play-based instruction, which is exciting for the kiddos. We're doing lots of different activities at the kindergarten level as well. There are coaching cycles with our literacy coach. And then we have a lot of ongoing professional development for our staff this year. There's a book study for any tech teacher or administrator that wants to participate. We met outside today. It was nice and warm. Sat on the lawn at Libby Tozier. Staff from Sabattis Primary, Carrie Ricker, and Libby Tozier, reading the book Shifting the Balance. And Mr. Wilson and I are spending a lot of time together this year on some different professional development. We're working on a pre-K through grade 3 professional development opportunity offered by the Maine DOE and several other Maine education groups. It's called Leading Early Learning. It's a professional learning series designed to build understanding of the components of evidence-based, high-quality early childhood learning environments. And we're also working with the University of Maine on a focus on literacy learning and a literacy audit to get everyone on the same page around supporting teachers and learners as coaches and administrators. So we're working a lot. That's a pre-K 8-1, and then we're working on another focus at the pre-K 3 level. So really hoping to impact literacy with those and extra math support as well. So that's all I have for that school.
Thank you. Any questions? All right.
I'm so glad Jamie went first. So Sabattis Primary School, looking at our data, first grade. Again, we've had, this is the STAR data. So we take the STAR test every 6 weeks. We use it as a progress monitoring tool for students. So the data we're looking at right now is the first assessment of the year, and this is our students compared to students nationally. This isn't data that's local. So what we're looking at is our first grade students compared to other first grade students in the country. So looking at our students who are in the green, phenomenal job. We have work to do, obviously. So we have students who are in need of intervention. Along with the intervention lines, we are working with we have a new literacy committee at the primary school, working with families to support home literacy. We also have instituted Really Great Reading. We have 2 coaches helping us with coaching cycles, one for literacy. We have focused learning groups during our PLG time that we're spending a lot of time looking at our data on reading and trying to decipher what interventions are best provided to our students in hopes of seeing more growth as the year continues. We have some programs offered from the tech department. We're using Freckle pretty ingeniously. We also have included the essential classes this year for grades 1 and for grades 2, which is pretty exciting for us. And we have a lot of professional development between Jamie and I, K-8, with literacy and leading early learning, which is, I got to tell you, it's been a while since I've had quality professional development. This is my 21st year or so in education. I've really been pleased with how far we've gone so far. Working with USM has been just a great deal of learning on my part. We always like to advocate for lifelong learning, but I think it's been a while since I felt so involved with literacy in the district. So thumbs up all the way around for that. Next slide, please, for grade 2. So grade 2, again. So the dark green, grade 2 reading. You could have gone to math, either way.
Which one do you want to do?
Right. Correct. So there's 2 options for assessments in grade 1. One is the students who do not pass or do not score high enough to continue with a STAR reading assessment are given an early literacy assessment, which is the same assessment offered to kindergarten kids. So that was the first slide. If you go to the second slide, which I think we're... Can't go back, it's fine.
I can't move it at all.
It's a lot of red. I'll just tell you, it's a lot of red. We have a lot of ground to make up for the last year and a half. We all understand that. I mean, we've been noticing
talk about non-data items, or data that's not represented. The issues we're seeing is, kids have not developed their muscles for things like sitting and being read to, that students are having a difficult time talking about the books that are being read to them, much less being able to read their own books. We had a great conversation about that during our book club this afternoon, but usually you can sit with a student, read them a book, and ask them a question that digs a little deeper. Students are coming up with answers like, yeah, she's wearing a red shirt, or yes, obviously they like dogs, but that isn't what we want them to get to. We want to get to more of the meaning of the story. And that, to a teacher at this afternoon's conversation, that just isn't what's happening. That there has been a piece of learning that's been lost, and we have to start developing those muscles. Some of the teachers were mentioning the fact that students could even sit down for it to be read to on the carpet because they don't have the trunk muscles to sit crisscross applesauce. And that's something that we're working on as well. So time in school is really important. So looking at first grade math, these are students, again, who scored higher than the minimal, so they're allowed to take the STAR math. Pretty excited about these numbers. I think we have a lot of students doing very well. Those students on the cusp in the blue, we'll see them move to green as the year progresses. I really enjoy probably the second or third STAR data point than the first one. The first one's always hard to explain. Next slide, Mr. Carlton, if you don't mind, please. Thank you very much. So second grade math. Again, there's a lot of room there. If you think about when the last time these students sat in a classroom full time, they were at the end of their kindergarten year. So again, a lot of loss there that we are working and striving really hard to gain. We have some movement to make. So again, we have a lot in place. We have a lot of learning as administrators. We have a lot of support for our teachers, and we're really excited how this year is going to turn out for us. So. Any questions? Yes.
When will be, you do the test every 6 weeks, Ben?
Yes.
So when are we going to get another presentation? I think it's in January,
So
February?
in January, Robert, that's when we start doing the data conversion.
Right.
We start looking at growth from the first test to the third
Right,
test.
yeah.
So that's localized data.
Yeah.
That to me is pretty meaningful, so we can see the actual
Yeah.
growth of our students in
Right,
our school
yeah.
system. So,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
No other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so at Carrie Ricker, 3rd and 4th grade. Again, really great reading. That is a, Kathy will correct me if I'm wrong, pre-K through 12th grade program now, right? So we're trying really hard to work on more of those transitional things so that the kiddos aren't learning something new as they move to a new grade level or school. We are working there as well for highly engaging ways of incorporating reading and math activities to get kids more excited and not just feel like they're hearing from a textbook or whatnot. 4th grade at Carrie Ricker is planning a book parade to share at Libby Tozier in November, so we're looking forward to that. Something that's happened in the past, but not for the last few years. 4th grade also has their, Kathy mentioned this earlier, it's Monday, what are you reading? It's a hashtag. If you have a 4th grader at home, you've seen their tie-dye t-shirt, I'm sure. They're supposed to wear these to school every Monday and discuss the books that they're reading. It's really created a lot of wonderful discussion. The adults are talking around the kids about what they're reading, and the kiddos are sharing, and seeing them even at lunchtime, all excited about this on Mondays, is pretty exciting. It was a fun activity for them to do together. There are different literacy coaching cycles, math coaching cycles. We have essentials classrooms for both 3rd and 4th grade, which supports math and reading with those lower student-teacher ratios. We have Title I support for students who are struggling with particular skills and areas of weakness. The math interventions have been focused on number sense. Our math coach likes to say that's like common sense, but about a number. We have several, math is also using several different visual representations of numbers and operations. Beaded number lines have been made by several classes. Base 10 blocks have been introduced and used in multiple 3rd and 4th grade classes as students have studied place value, addition, and subtraction.
So
And I didn't even go through the data first. Sorry, it jumped right to the, all about the details there. So 3rd grade math, we're seeing some good, I'd love to compare this to prior years now that we're using Do the Math. I didn't mention that yet. In Title I, I would love to see these next to each other at some point to see the growth from that program. But there is a lot of green here for math in 3rd grade. Still room to grow. We'll get those yellow and red bars shorter by the next time is our goal. A lot of differentiating, grouping, just like I shared with Libby Tozier. Same thing with 3rd and 4th grade. Teachers are really grouping based on these different bands and which skills the students are working lower on. And then 4th grade reading. This one, yep, we've got some work to do here. So we've got the red and yellow bars are way larger than we'd like them to be, but I'm hoping that a lot of this stuff we'll see results from. And I do think that if we could drill down on this data, you would see that phonics piece that we mentioned earlier with Libby Tozier plays into this quite a bit. So hoping to see some really good growth from those new programs. And 4th grade math, that yellow bar is really by itself there, isn't it? So room to grow there for sure.
Okay, any questions?
It looks like there's a hand up in Zoom. I don't know if they have a question about the data that was just shared or not.
Who's that?
I just see a yellow hand. Somebody has
Oh,
their
yellow hand.
raised.
Laura Clifford's got a question.
Are we taking public comment now?
Yeah, we don't typically take the comments while we're doing these presentations. So she can send it, she's on Zoom? So she can send a chat, the superintendent can see it, and we might be able to address it at the end. All right, that way we can get the presentations done, and then if there's any questions out there, we can try and deal with them at that time.
So tag your it to Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, tag team, tag him.
So glad I didn't go first. Anyway.
Can you get that mic a little bit closer to you?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I can. There we go. All right. Let's do this. Mr. Carlton.
Here comes the technology guy to be able to lift it up so you won't have to hold it.
Dated me. That's good. Appreciate that. Tickle my nose. That's good.
Hold on.
All right, Oak Hill Middle School data, 5th grade. Into the mic. Okay. 5th grade data. So pretty excited to have the 5th grade team join us this year. It's been a nice fit. We did some work last year to get them, to get the adults and the students excited about the middle school. And I got to tell you, the staff are fitting in beautifully, and the students are really having a great time. Again, our processes through advisory and our restorative practices systems are fully in place, and the students really are doing wonderfully. And it's been a joy to have these kids in our school. Working with the 1st and 2nd graders, and prior year the pre-K tours, it's been a lot of fun for me. I'm a big man, and I've been working with middle school kids for a lot of years. To kind of have to look down now and talk to kids and get on their level, and it's been a learning experience. But having these bright, shiny faces that love to be at school in our building just brings a whole new light to everything that we're doing, which is exciting. Looking at their data, again, we're looking at a 50-50 split, so we're pretty excited about our growth opportunities with 5th grade. And this is for reading. If you want to keep going, Mr. Carlton, I'll do my fun talk at the end. This is for math. Again, a lot of kids on the cusp, a lot of kids getting ready to make that jump into proficiency. And it really does matter when we offer the STAR test for students, again, because it's nationally normed. So, I don't know if we did it early this year, if we did it late this year. I always try to feel where other schools are prior to our giving assessments. But, I'm not disappointed by this data. We have room to grow, and we're going to see a lot of growth this year. 6th grade, Mr. Carlton. Same thing here. Again, we have room to grow for reading. Really good reading we learned 2 years ago now that we had difficulties with our reading program at the middle school. We instituted the Lucy Calkins system with the workshop model, and still had some difficulties with our data that in the state we're always 2 or 3 points above the average for the state, which is pretty exciting for us. But we recognize that our stagnant data, even though it was good, it was stagnant, which means the students weren't really learning how to read better or read more or be more comfortable with their reading. So we instituted the phonics program last year during COVID, which really helped support us. Actually, we got the program, I think the high school started before we started it, but we're trying to develop, like Ms. Ela said, a K-12 design here, where the more support we provide for kids at a earlier age, the less support we need to provide as they get older. So, Mr. Carlton, 7th grade, please. 6th grade math, that's even better. Okay, so 6th grade math, again, on the cusp. We're doing a great job. Keep on going, Mr. Carlton. Yes, so this is 7th grade reading. Again, you know, I'm not disappointed by this data. It's a good place to start. Keep going, Mr. Carlton. 8th grade, sorry, 7th grade math. 8th grade, yes. Yes. I'm gonna get jittery here in a second. It's like a dance here, but yes. So again, you know, not overly happy with our lower data here, but again, room to grow, and I can't wait to show you what happens in January. So, next slide, Mr. Carlton. And there's our 8th grade math, which should end it off for us. Again, we're on the cusp. We have most of the classes on the cusp of becoming proficient, which we're very excited about. So at the middle school, last year, we instituted the phonics and Pinnell. So we haven't had a whole lot of test data at the middle school. STAR has been pretty much our focus, probably for the last 6-7 years. And that we just started gaining more access to some assessments to help us with the minutia with our students. So the F&P, you'll hear F&P used a lot at the elementary levels, but we instituted it at the middle school last year. I think Mr. Alberti had it last year as a high school as well, but it's a way of fine-tuning what our students have for reading knowledge, which is great. It gives our teachers a level playing field so we can start grouping kids by academic peers, which is something that we're doing at the middle school now. We've instituted an essentials program, so we're looking at our data, taking the students that have not been successful for most of their educational career, and we don't put them in the class permanently, but we have a class that we call the essentials class that students rotate in and out of. If they need more help with something, they rotate into it. As they get better at it, they rotate out of it. Along with that, we also instituted a STEM team. The STEM team is more for social-emotional health for kids, where these are the kids that are the quiet kids that sit in the back of the room that maybe want to do things with their hands, a little more hands-on learning, and that's been very helpful for us. So we have some programs from technology. We're using IXL and Freckle now for reading and for math, which is very exciting for us. We've had some teachers come to us from Carrie Ricker who had very in-depth knowledge of Freckle, and we're now starting to use that level of support for not just reading and math, but for social studies and science as well, and that we're finding to be very, very helpful for our students to receive another voice on what they're learning in class. So we're trying to give multiple pathways for students to learn, that it's not just the teacher offering the information, but there's a technology piece, there's a YouTube piece, there's a book piece, and then there's a teacher piece, that there's a variety of ways students can gain their knowledge. Okay, yeah, we also instituted a humanities class beginning of this year, which puts the writing with the social studies together. So when we look at language skills, that we're spreading the wealth, that our reading teachers can concentrate on reading this year, and then our writing is done through our humanities classes, which again, you know, humanities is a great place for writing to happen. The opinion pieces, the narrative pieces, and all that, it's a natural part of what they do already in the curriculum, that just adding the Lucy Calkins writing program has been a bonus for us. So any questions about the middle school?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for a moment to speak to you regarding STAR 360 Fall Test Administration for Oak Hill High School. Before I jump into the presentation, I'd like to give you a brief background on STAR at Oak Hill. Prior to COVID, we tested students in the content area specific to testing sessions, and in the last year and a half, we've tested students in their Rater Connection periods. So Rater Connection, for those of you guys that do not know, is a time during the day when students are assigned to an advisor but can visit other teachers for support. The data from our testing has been used in multiple ways. We have developed a workshop model in some of our English classes to group students based on scores. Development of essentials English courses to support basic reading and writing skills. Development of pre-algebra, everyday algebra, and everyday geometry courses, and expansion of dual enrollment offerings and other course offerings. It's been very beneficial as far as the data is concerned. Overall, the data is one point of reference for growth in the areas of English and mathematics. At the beginning of this year, we returned to testing content-specific areas, and here are our results. Please note, this is a baseline for the year. And if you take a look, please, ladies and gentlemen, here are our scores for 9th grade reading. Mr. Carlton, next slide, please. 9th grade math. Next slide, please. 10th grade reading. Next slide, please. 10th grade math. Thank you. Next up, 11th grade reading. Next slide, please. 11th grade math. Next slide, please. 12th grade reading. And last but not least, 12th grade math. Ladies and gentlemen, the conclusion that I can make out of this is that it is a bit of a mixed bag as far as any, well, baseline would be. But with that being said, we do have, in some content areas, the upperclassmen, specifically juniors and seniors, doing better than our underclassmen students, 9th and 10th graders. With that being said, it does make sense to see those results, only because those students in 11th and 12th grade have had a normal, to some extent, educational experience at Oak Hill High School, while our 9th and 10th grade students obviously have been working through COVID, and hence the results at hand. I do look forward to sharing with you guys in January the change and the growth that we have from this baseline test in the fall to the winter. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen?
Marco?
Mr. Gaten.
Do we have interventionists at the high school?
We do.
We do, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And that interventionist works in English classes specifically, but he also he also teaches two essential English courses, English 3 for juniors and English 4 for seniors.
And what about if help in math?
So help in math comes in a number of different ways. So we're lucky enough that we have 5 math teachers at the high school where we can offer a large number of offerings to our students. So we have a really good system in place as far as the stratification of course offerings. So pre-algebra, as I said, everyday algebra. So instead of it meeting every other day, it meets every single day. Same with a geometry course that's structured the same way. So we do that support that way. The other piece is, as far as math labs are concerned, in the past we've had a large number of math labs, and we've kind of condensed those. A math lab, ladies and gentlemen, is essentially a specific content area study hall that students can get support in. So that would be another way, Robbie. As far as working with a math interventionist, it's something that we're looking to, try to build in. Just so that our teachers have the best tools possible to get the best results out of our kiddos.
Yeah. Can you explain to the audience what an interventionist does?
Yeah, absolutely. So an interventionist actually can do a lot of different things, and Miss Kathy Martin gave me a nice book to read in regards to interventionists just recently that I started reading. So thanks for that, Kathy. But essentially, an interventionist does exactly that. They intervene. So they may be working with students who are struggling in a specific content area, and they do that by either working with a small group of students, they can work one-on-one with a kiddo, they can teach a specific course, which is the way that we use them. We use some of our interventionists in the high school.
Yep, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, we have no other reports. I don't know if there's any other reports. Okay, so we'll move on to old business, 6.1. A motion to approve the second reading of the following policy, BED, remote participation in school board meetings.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, then all those in favor? Thank you. 6.2, discussion of CPT membership.
All right, so if you remember correctly at the last meeting, you had asked me to put together maybe some options for the CPT, the collaborative planning team. I did get some feedback from a few of you, which was nice. I also got some other feedback around. So what I've done here is put together 6 potential options, and obviously this is not exhaustive. There are other things that could be, but based upon the feedback that I got, this is kind of what I put together. So hold on just a sec. right, so collaborative planning team. So currently, an option would be to keep it the way it is. It includes 12 members, which is 3 parents, 1 board member, 7 administrators, and a nurse. That's the current model that we've been operating under. Obviously, it's an option to keep that.
Don't we have staff members from the association
Oh,
currently?
sorry, I apologize. Yes, we have 2 teachers. I left that off here. My apologies. Yes. Option 2, disband the collaborative planning team altogether. That would mean that any change to the standard operating procedure from the Department of Ed and the main CDC would come directly to the school board for discussion. So the school board would hear a presentation about what those changes are, what the potentials are, and then the school board would deliberate that without any recommendation from outside, from staff or parents or things like that. Option 3, and I made a typo here, of course. Option 3, the board hires a local physician or local epidemiologist as a consultant that can discuss local trends, the updates to the SOP, and would make recommendations to the board as an independent consultant. There are some districts that have done this. It has been successful in those districts. Again, this is just an option. Option 4, the collaborative planning team continues, but with this makeup. 6 staff members, 3 voting administrators, and 3 staff members, 6 parents. The members are appointed by the superintendent annually, and the superintendent acts as the facilitator only. So that is an option. Option 5, 1 building administrator chosen by the Administrative Association, the director of CAI, a board member appointed by the board, 3 staff members appointed by the association, which would be 1 support staff, 1 professional staff, and 1 other of the association's choosing, a doctor or a nurse, a parent from each grade span, so pre-K 2, 3, 5, and 6 through 12, a high school student, and the superintendent would act as a facilitator only. Option 6, this would be, again, the superintendent or the designee acts as a facilitator, 3 building principals, operations director, director of CAI, a parent from each building, 3 staff members appointed by the association, and a school nurse. So again, based on the feedback I got from some of you, we talked as an administrative team. These are the options that I put together. They're not exhaustive, but they are options that there are. So I look to you all to say, what do we want to do moving forward?
Okay, so in order to facilitate the discussion, there's 6 options up there. It's probably a lot to go and discuss. There might be 1 or 2 that the board maybe feel can be thrown out to start with, and then we can concentrate. So that there's 1 about discontinuing the CPT committee altogether. I don't know how the board members feel about that. That would mean all of the discussions would come to board meetings. We would have to look at the board as an entirety, would have to look at the data and listen to whatever individuals, experts, or in the field would go and provide, read the guidance that comes out from the different government agencies, and then make the decisions as a board as a whole. So is there any strong support for total elimination of the CPT meeting? All right, so that option we can take out. All right, so if we go back to then, that's up, so that, and we got another one before this. All right, so this is the current one.
No,
So-
the current one is here.
Yeah, current one. So option 1 is the current one. There's been a lot of discussion about it might not be the way we need to move forward. Is there strong support to keep it in its current makeup and composition? I'm not seeing a lot. I did see a couple of no's. All right, so that one we can take out. All right. So then we go to it's option number 4 here, which is 6 staff members, 3 voting administrators, 3 staff members, and 6 parents. I don't know if we can I don't know what the sense is there, if this is the right option to have.
Before, but how would we go about choosing the parents?
I'm sorry?
I like this option, but how would we go about choosing which 6 parents?
Yeah, and please, if you do, so that people outside can hear us, if we'll use the mic so it gets picked up. But
I like the option number 4. I just want to know how we would go about choosing which 6 parents.
well, that would be a discussion that we'd have to have. If we want to go to this option, then we would need to, because the CPT is built on policy of the board. It's a board committee. The board generates who sits on it, what their role is, all right, and who the members make up, just like every other committee we have. So, facilities committee, they make big decisions and bring in the recommendation to the board about which contractors we're going to use and all those things. And those committee members are also board members. So we would, if this is the way we went, then we would then have to do more discussion. So right now let's narrow it down to an option or two if we can. All right, and then maybe we can flesh it out tonight. Maybe we can't flesh it out tonight, but we'll look into it. So here is number 4.
Can I ask a quick question? How are the parents selected currently, on the current CPT?
I selected them.
Just a randomized?
Yeah, there were people that reached out to me that said that they wanted to.
I believe, didn't you put out?
I put out an ask. Yep.
An ask?
Yep.
Okay.
And there were 3
And you had
people.
volunteers?
Yep, there were 3 volunteers. Yep.
Okay, so flash up another one.
Jeez. Hold on.
So this one is a building administrator. So it gives break it down, it gives each of our associations a member. So each of our bargaining associations have a representative because these decisions will affect them. A doctor or nurse, could be our school nurse, or it could be either the board's doctor for the union or some other doctor to provide the medical viewpoint, the nurse especially for any tasking that goes on our nurse grouping. A board member appointed by the board. The staff, that's it there. A parent from each grade span. Again, how they would be selected would be something that would need to be worked out. A high school student. I would think the high school student would be more for advice and information on how the high school students might feel, and not so much as a, quote, voting member, but for their opinions on how things are done are going to affect them. And then the superintendent as a facilitator. So that's this option here. I think this is the only one that had a board member on it. I remind you that every committee we have is a board committee, and every one is made up of board. Matter of fact, every other committee is 100% board members, and then they have other directors and et cetera come in and give information, and those committee members make the decision on what to bring to the board, and then the board acts on it. So this would be a board member there to go and be able to represent the board. Whether they vote or not, we could decide, but to make sure that our policies are being followed.
So
Christie?
I like this option because it has the high school student. I think that's a voice that's really critical and one that often gets missed. I do think that if there's a board member on any of these committees, they should be non-voting.
Okay. Yes?
Yeah, I'd be in favor of number 5.
Okay, so 4 and 5 have been thrown into the kitty. What else do we have? Maybe.
I do think 12 people on a committee is big, though. I just want to put that out there.
Is excessive, you said?
It's just a large number to try to.
I would agree, it is
Yeah.
a large number.
That's the current number.
It is,
Yes.
yeah.
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 So this one here is, aside from the parents from each building, it is all building administrators or staff, which I guess it could be good, it could be bad. Could be viewed that they might all be somewhat controlled by the superintendent, which isn't always the case, because if you attend any of these meetings, you know that they speak up pretty freely on their own about things, but this is an option. So what's the feeling on this option? Is there any support for further consideration of this one? I'm not really seeing any. Can you speak in the mic so that everybody can hear you?
So in theory, with this one, we would have 5 parents.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And as I said, this is not an exhaustive list. These are frameworks. Certainly they're able to be modified as you guys see fit. But I thought I'd put some options together to start with.
All right, so that would be 14 members plus a facilitator with the 5 community members. Okay. So do we want to consider this one more? Remember, this is always fluid. If what we come up with doesn't seem to work, the board, as with any of our policies, has an opportunity to modify it.
I'd be willing to discuss this one more also.
Vicki?
I like this one too, but I do believe we need a board member on it, even if it's non-voting. I think a board member needs to be present on a board committee.
Okay, everybody hear that? Okay. She said that she likes this option as well, but it needs to have a board member, even if they're non-voting, just to have a board member on a board committee. All right.
Personally, I like the fact that we have a committee that doesn't have board members on it. So I would eliminate this personally for that option.
Okay, so we're throwing this one in. We're going to get down to what we end up with the pool. So we've eliminated 2, I think.
So we basically
We missed one.
there was
The
the other one,
consultant.
but that also threw out the CPT.
Yeah.
There's also this option.
Oh, so then we had the option of hiring an outside independent subject matter experts. I suppose in the initial year or so, it could be covered by the additional funds we have because it would be COVID related in many respects. But I don't know what the feeling is there.
This would eliminate the
Kristen?
collaborative.
Yeah. While I appreciate the expertise, I think there's a huge disadvantage because those that work locally that impact the schools understand what's going on, their voice would not be heard.
Thank you. So is there any other any support for this one? You throw this one out? Okay. So, getting a crank here. We need to put one of these up there too so the board can see them. Anyway, so I see that options 4, 5, and 6 were the 3 that we would like to possibly consider. So if we start with number 4, I'd like for board members to give their viewpoint. It's not a vote now. I'd like to hash out each of the 4 and see what people are saying about it. And then after that, each of the 3, I'm sorry. And then after that, then we can see if there is another one that we want to eliminate from consideration and focus on 2. And then maybe we can get down to a single one, or we can say, all right, these are the 2 options. Maybe they need to be refined, a little more information. We take that back. We come back in 2 weeks at our next meeting and look at those 2 with any suggestions for refinements at that time, and then make a decision then. But we just got to get it narrowed down. So if we can do the narrowing first, and I think we can do that by discussion on each one, and then we can get a consensus on which 2 we want to focus on. And maybe we come up, we're going to focus on all 3. But let's see where we go. So number 4, Scott, you mentioned that you like this number. Would you like to start?
Sure, thank you. I do like option 4. The thing that makes this one unique is that the members are appointed annually, so you have some sort of change there. I feel like bringing new ideas into the CPT committee is a great way to start that. I would probably change where the 6 parents, I kind of like the idea from 5 and 6 where they're 1 per school. That's what I would change, is I would take the 6 parents out and do the 1 per school. But other than that, I really like this plan.
Okay. Other comments or strong or weak points that somebody might see? Kristen?
On the 6 parents, I like the idea of 1 per school, but I also like the idea of 2 per town. So if there's a way to make sure that every school is represented and also having voices, 2 from each of our 3 towns, I think is important. And I also will advocate for the high school voice on all of these options.
Okay, so those would be the refinements, right? But there's a couple of things been thrown out on things that could be done to
I
this
second
one.
the
to
high school
try and make it more
forgot that point. That's a good one.
palatable. Scott, you think those make sense?
Yeah, but she had mentioned the addition of the high school student, and I
Right.
really like that from the other plan too, so I think we may want to consider adding that before.
Okay. All right, so option number 5, if you can. Okay, number 5. So, comments on this one? Yes, Robbie?
Yeah, I'm in favor of 5 because I think it hits all the points that we added on 4, except for the board member being on it. And I wouldn't be opposed. I think it's important to have a board member on the committee. I'm really not sure if they should be allowed to vote, but I think it's a point of view that is good to have.
Okay, and if we were looking at parents, would you entertain maybe going to 6, 2 from each town, or just 3, 1 from
yeah,
each? Which could come from each town.
Right, I would be in favor of 2 from each town. That would be a plus. And it has the high school student already in it. So, yeah. And I like the idea that the director of CAI is on it, because it gets that learning piece into it. If we have that discussion, if we have to go to a hybrid or, remote learning or anything like that.
Okay, any other comments?
Well, this one doesn't have the changeover of the members.
Well, that can certainly be added.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to adding it. Yeah.
I think,
I may remove doctor. I'm not sure what cost association with that would be.
Well, nurse, could be our nurse.
could be our school nurse like it currently is.
Right, like it currently is.
I mean,
Yeah,
so if we were to, as a board, to task for testing,
right,
that would impact our nursing staff. So it would be nice to have,
right.
most anything we do around COVID is going to have some impact on our nursing staff. So
Yeah.
their input would be significant, I would think.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other comments on this one?
I like 5 with the idea of the not term limits, but the appointmentship being 1 year. I also think strongly that the board member should not vote.
The board member should what?
Should not vote.
Should not vote, okay? All right.
Yo, Vicki.
Oh, Vicki, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You're so close, I can't turn that far around to see you.
I also like 5, and having the board member not vote is fine with me. So I think this one,
Okay. All right, any other comments on this one? And we move on to number.
Number 5, I would agree with that, as long as we have the school nurse, 1 board member, no vote, and with the 1-year turnover also.
All right,
I would agree with option number 5 because I feel like this has the best broad scope representation, and having the board member not vote would be appropriate as well.
okay. All right, thank you. Then we'll look at option number 6. All right, so this is basically, we add the parents. This could be 6 instead of 1 from each building. That was 5. So we could be 6 there, but other than that, it is staff, administrators and staff. All right. So opinions, this one had some positive feedback to look at it, to throw it in the kit. So anybody like to speak to this one?
I think 4 and 5 are stronger options at this point.
All right. So I can get a,
I agree, and I'm feeling that we're just taking option 4 and turning it to option 5 with a twist.
okay. So we'll throw this one out. That's 4 and 5. Do we want to concentrate on tweaking 5 to make those few little things and then bring it back? Give everybody, so it need to be written out to specify non-voting school board members appointed annually. What's the other one?
2 parents from each town.
Parent from each town.
Oh, parents,
Two
two parents from each town
Yep.
to cover, make sure that we're covering the grade spans.
Correct.
Or the buildings as much as we can. I mean, we might not be able to do that exactly, but we can try, right? I mean, we can get as close as we can.
And then appointing them for 1 year.
And appoint them for 1 year. I will also remind everybody that the CPT only came about because of COVID-19.
Right.
So if we get over that, then the board will have a discussion on whether we want to keep it in place for other types of things that might come up in the future, or to disband it, but keep the framework out there. So if something else comes up, we can stand one up pretty quick. All right? So do we want to go back and think about 4 and 5, or just move to 5 with the tweaks?
Just move to 5.
5s with the tweaks? Okay. So that's what we'll do, and then I'll ask that we write it up, put it down, put it in a proper format.
Yep.
All right. We can suspend with a first and second reading in our next meeting, and we can just read it and approve it as a second reading in 2 weeks so that it doesn't drag on for a month plus. All right? All right. I thank you all.
Thank you all.
All right. Moving on to new business. 7.1. Discussion regarding hiring an additional administrative support for Oak Hill Middle School.
All right, so I'm going to ask Ben to talk about this, but I brought this forward. You know, one of the things that we've done is we made a reorganization. Ben and Jenny have 2 schools. I mean, I know Michael and Jamie do as well. 2 schools, over 600 students. You know, we're about a month and a half or so into the school year. And, you know, Ben has noticed some interesting trends with specifically behavior and social emotional regulation. And so consequently, we had a conversation, I know it bred out of his team leaders at the middle school, of maybe having a different kind of support for those low-level behaviors. So I'll let Ben talk.
Yeah, so, you know, looking at 6 weeks in the school, so 2 years ago, actually 18-19 was the last full year we had with students in the building. We had 45 office referrals. We're at 30 right now. We're 6 weeks into school, and that was with 125 less students back in 18-19. So the concern is we're on record for probably one of the worst behavior years we've ever had, and we know that's not us. We know it's not the students. We know it's not the teachers. It just feels like we're setting people up for failure, and that's not feeling good for me. You know, we were once known nationally as a restorative school, that we have really tight practices when it comes to social emotional health of our students. It just feels like some of that might be slipping. Ms. Johnson and I, the model we're currently working under is we have one of us in each building right now, currently, almost every day. Sometimes one of us has to travel back and forth between buildings to provide assistance. But we have right now over 75 students with IEPs and numerous 504 meetings. Each one of these meetings is an hour and a half long. So Ms. Johnson right now, her bulk has been taking 4 of those meetings a day while I pop back and forth to do behaviors in 2 separate buildings. And you know, I talked earlier about, you know, the first and second graders not having stamina to sit in a classroom, much less understand books that are being read to them. But, you know, there are behaviors that are popping up that maybe we wouldn't see in a normal year that we're definitely seeing this year. And the stress, you know, from the staff has come through clearly in our team leaders meeting. Ms. Johnson can support the amount of effort that our team leaders have put into supporting us and their concern about us. You know, I bebop back and forth probably 5 or 6 times a day. And in that process, you know, just looking at the numbers, you know, we have close to 600 students, you know, and I was in a school before coming to RSU4 where there were 620 students in the building, but there are 2 dedicated admin in that building, and that works well. But right now, we don't have 2 dedicated admin in that building. Granted, 600 kids are spread between 2 buildings, but with us separated, we don't even have time to talk. You know, I did a data presentation tonight that I'm not sure Mrs. Johnson could replicate. because we haven't had the conversation together because of the amount of effort going into supporting students and student behaviors. You've probably heard already from the community that communication has been complicated with us as far as communicating to the community about what's been going on in the school as well. And that also can't be how the rest of the year goes. It just is uncomfortable for all of us. Again, we have good practices in place. It's just that we need to support the students and the teachers with those practices. And that takes time. And time is not something we have right now when we're divvied up between the two buildings. I'm looking for support in the middle school to have a dean of students who would support our students with behavior plans, support our students with low-lying behaviors. Right now, I'm currently running 6 behavior plans out of the office, but I can't consistently be there for a checkout at the end of the day. And if anyone knows anything about replacing behaviors or just working with students, the first person the student sees in the morning and the last person they see at the end of the day, it's really, really important, especially the middle school level, for the social emotional well-being. I'm outside every morning. I used to high five. I have 500 handshakes I do with kids every morning. I haven't been able to do it since COVID hit. But I'm outside making sure that, looking in everyone's eyes as they come in and looking for the health of the student. Sometimes we see students have had a really emotional evening, so we can veer them off and have them see a guidance counselor, or veer them off and have them see a favorite teacher. But we just have not been able to get to that level yet so far, and I'm not seeing an end to it. Having that little added support would allow Ms. Johnson and I to meet together a little more often to provide more consistent programming for our students for discipline and behavioral support, to meet with our staff to make sure that our staff is feeling that they're being tended to. I guess the concern I rose with Mr. Carlton came out of the leadership team meeting when our leaders of our building who've been in that building over, each one of them have been in the building more than 15 years. Their concern is when they call the office, they can't get somebody. And that's happened a lot this year so far. And, I don't want to leave them hanging. I don't want them to have a behavior in class that is getting out of control because one of us is in the wrong building or one of us is in a, hour-and-a-half IEP meeting. For those who know me, it's really hard for me to ask for help. I don't ask for anything ever, and this is really hard for me to talk to you about this, but at this point, I'm asking for help. We need a little extra support for us to have the quality school that we've had in the past. And this isn't just because of COVID. We had there's a lot of things happening with the added grade level, plus the return from COVID, right? And then Ms. Johnson and I have only spent 6 months together as a workable team before we started being separated, working with 2 separate buildings. And it was 3 weeks after we got the separate building that COVID hit and we had to quarantine. So again, Ms. Johnson and I, for the last 3 years, have only had 6 months working together for training purposes. And it just doesn't feel good at this point.
Well, and I would say too, hold on, I'll bring this closer. I would say too, looking at, when Ben came to me with this, it just made sense, and I will echo what Ben says. Ben never asked for help. Never. I've worked with Ben for, 9 years now, not once asked for help. And so consequently, when he came to me with this, it obviously was serious. We do have a model for this. We had a dean of students. For those of you who are on the board, we did have a dean of students back in the day. I will remind you, a dean of students is not an administrator. Doesn't require an administrative certificate, so this position wouldn't do evaluation. It wouldn't even be able to suspend a student. It would handle those low-level things that pop up in class so they don't get bigger later on. Help students with social emotional dysregulation. Work with teachers on what's going on in class. And beyond that, it provides a level of support for our staff and for our students, which I think is the most important thing. I will tell you that this can be paid for out of our ARP funds for the next couple of years because it is directly tied to COVID. I mean, our students don't have the stamina, and as you know, middle school's a tough age. I've got 2 of them in my own home. Yeah. It's tough. And so, needing a little extra support makes good sense in my mind.
Any questions? So, typically when we add something like this, it doesn't become a permanent position,
right,
ongoing, and we're going to pay for it out of special funds. The time limit on the position would in fact be tied to, once we lost the grant funds that could pay for it, the position goes away. If at that point it's evaluation and that we really need to add it, then it gets added into the budget during the normal process and we deal with it then. So if we agree to do this, then when we hire, we would advertise it as a basically a year and a half or 2 years, whatever the funding is available, limited position. So, discussion?
I can also mention that this did come to the Policy and Personnel Committee this afternoon, evening, whenever it was, and we decided to support this as a committee. So just kind of letting those of you that are on other committees know that we did discuss this and talked a lot about the idea of the term contingent upon funding, which would be what you just spoke about. It wouldn't be base funded.
All right, thank you.
Rather than throwing money at a problem, is there something that you can specifically point to? It sounds like you feel it might be very emotionally tied. Is there anything that we could potentially change to enhance the emotional stability of,
Well, to be honest, if we were fully staffed, we're still short techs, so we're down 5 ed techs. We have a long-term sub at a math position. He may not stay with us much longer. We have a reading teacher who found a position 40 minutes closer to her home. That will be leaving us shortly. And right now, our coverage for missing teachers who are absent is to take prep time away. And we have taken away probably at least 32 preps away from teachers this year. So they haven't had time to work on their materials. They haven't had time to look at student data. They haven't had time to do all that work. And that also is a big piece of the stress of the middle school right now, is being understaffed. That would be a big help. Also having a full Spur Wink compilation. So normally we'd have 2 full-time Spur Wink counselors at the middle school, helping us with our social emotional work there as well. We are down to 1 part-time student who's finishing her degree in social work from USM. Again, a big help because she doesn't worry so much about insurances, but not enough support. You know, Scott, when I'm talking about the level of support that we're looking for here, it's about the fact that 3 teachers will have a student having issues in class out of the 20 teachers we have in the building. Sometimes calling the office is, they're at the point where they need that extra help from the office, so they call down. If I'm available, I go. If Ms. Johnson's available, she goes. But it's happening almost on an everyday basis now, where we're in meetings. Ms. Johnson has had 4 or 5 IEP meetings, which are 1 hour and 15 each, every day for the last 3 weeks. I know they'll slow down over time, but if we could just, we still have advertisements out for those positions, Scott. We have one applicant for a math position, but we have a lot of openings we can't fill. We're trying. Volunteers can come and support like a reading program, or they can support something in the classroom, but they can't be out with kids by themselves. So, there is an opportunity there, but, I'm not sure it relieve the amount of, the type of stress that's being felt. My concern really at this point is I don't want to miss something. We've had 6 student issues pertaining to suicide already this year. We've had 5 students start to hurt themselves at home already this year. That's a different level of support that, it's hard to provide that level of support to make that go away. It takes bodies. It takes people who love their kids to make that happen. So this position would free up Ms. Johnson and I to be able to, be that level of support for our staff and for our students. I pride myself on how calm the middle school is. I pride myself on the fact that, Splash Primary School, we're down to 10 office referrals a year. When it was close to 60 a week when we first started, we manage our behaviors, we manage our staff, and our students feel loved because of that. And when they're respected, they don't have these issues. But right now, it's hard to feel that respect when Ms. Johnson and I are running around trying to put out fires, because we can't be fully present for these meetings and to support our staff or our students.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Just a comment that working with professionals that are deans of students, they're not just there for disciplinary issues.
Yeah.
They're there to provide a consistent presence for students and someone else that they can develop relationships with.
Yeah.
And so what I'm hearing you say is that we're constantly battling to try and gasp for air.
Well, we're at the point now where there isn't a lot of consistency, and
Right.
that is part of a major part of our frustration and issue. I
Right.
worked at Greeley for a few years, and in Greeley there was an assistant principal, and a dean of students.
Yeah.
And the dean of students was well sought after. Students wanted to go visit him. Like it was a member of our social, emotional, and behavioral health team.
Right.
The other thing too is, as Ben talked about in the committee meeting, at one time the middle school was a nationally known school for restorative practices. You know, this is a position that could come into the building and start working on those things again, working with teachers on their restorative circles, doing restorative work between students and staff. It pays a lot of dividends in the long term.
Yeah, you don't hear about the middle school very often. You've heard a lot about the middle school this past year, but the last 7 or 8 years, the middle school's been pretty quiet, and that's because people they've been happy. You know, we have 98% attendance rate most always. Kids want to come to school, which is phenomenal. It just, you know, I'm just concerned about what happens from this point forward.
Okay, any other discussion? If not, then if somebody would like to go and make a motion to approve the hiring of additional administrative support for Oak Hill Middle School, now would be a time to do that.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the topic? We want to make sure that it's noted that it is a temporary position. All right, even though that's not in the motion, but it is a temporary position tied to funding that we can get to support it. If there's no other discussion, now call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Good luck.
Listen, thank you guys. I really appreciate this. Thank you so much.
Committee reports. Finance facility meets the next time. Personnel policy met.
Yep, we met. We had a couple of things that we spoke about. The first being the fact that we haven't been able to have our high school reps yet. So the committee has decided to conduct interviews for 2 student reps. We'll have student reps that represent the junior class and senior class. We're going to create a selection process which will include an application, a resume, and an interview process with the board. And interviews will be occurring in late October. We reviewed the use of physical restraint and seclusion policy. We approved, the Policy and Personnel Committee approved that, and it's off to review by the superintendent. And our next policy meeting will be at Oak Hill High School following our student rep interviews.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, thank you. CAI Technology Committee?
We did meet. Kathy provided us one of the conversations, and there will be a survey going out to parents and staff and stakeholders regarding preference for late start versus early release on Wednesdays. There will also be a survey going out later to staff in regards to PLG feedback and groups, which I think will be very important in having the conversations about the late start and early release as well. The other pieces of information that Kathy shared with us was the first time of basically full summer school for pre-K through high school, but specifically pre-K through 8th grade. The intention of this first time of running summer school was very much to help students maintain. In pre-K through 6th grade, there were 257 students that participated, and then over 40 in the 7th and 8th grade. The numbers really support continuing doing this for students. It was really wonderful to see. The other piece that we talked about was the fact that for high school with summer school is credit recovery. There were 61 students that participated and 48 credits were recovered. That's pretty awesome. The other thing is that she shared with us and really wanted to emphasize that our graduation rate for our 4-year cohorts, Marco had spoken about this last time, but since 2014, our numbers were at 75% graduate rate. With 2021, it was up to almost 90% graduation rate. That's amazing. Amazing. Yes. And that this number also with the 5- and 6-year cohort was up into the high 80s, okay? Being a former school counselor and having to do all of these numbers and track all of this information as well, bravo. It's amazing for the students, the staff, administration. It's awesome. So,
any questions? Thank you all very much. Board member comments.
I just had a quick one. Is there anybody still on Zoom that wanted to make a comment? Apparently, Andy was logged into the wrong Zoom meeting.
Well, apparently, so Norma Jean passed it on. Apparently, the link wasn't working correctly. So I haven't changed where I've logged in. I actually used the link from the agenda itself. So I'm a little confused as to why that happened. But there are a few people in there.
I don't know if we could take a moment and see if anybody did have a final comment, since they didn't get the opportunity.
Well, the link was up when we had our public comments.
It wasn't working.
It wasn't working then?
Yeah.
Yeah, at the time we were doing public comment, it was not working.
That's what I hear.
Yeah.
I guess if there's no objection, we can allow them. Again, the same rules will apply, 3 minutes. Difference here is I could reach over and disconnect, but I don't want to do that. So please keep your comments to the 3 minutes, and we'll allow those brief comments to those who were unable to log on during the public comment period. So if you will raise your hand and be recognized.
I have nobody raising their hand.
So nobody's raising their hand?
Nope.
All right. And we'll move on to board member comments. Any other board member comments?
Yeah, I do. We saw a lot of graphs and numbers tonight, so I wanted to share my own little fun fact. According to the COVID dashboard on the RSU4 website, we are now at 36 cases. So from September the 1st, the first day of school, until September 22nd, when we voted to enact universal masking, we had 18 cases. As of today, we're at 36, so there's an additional 18 cases in the last 17 days. So you're talking about 18 cases in 22 days when we're not masked, 18 cases in 17 days as masked, mathematically proving that masks are not working. Even though I've just mathematically proved this to you, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a quick second. Even if they did work, we wouldn't see any effects from it because kids are unmasked everywhere they go but school. We're no longer following the science at this point. We're witnessing a collapse in mental health of a generation of children. It's an overreach of power, an assault on human rights, and a danger to these children. As we've heard, emotional effects, I feel it's directly related to this. Is the board ready to reconsider?
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'd like to ask a question that I don't know the answer to. So there's 18 additional cases. How many kids were in quarantine?
The COVID dashboard just lists 36 cases. That's including staff. And at the last meeting, we clarified that there was 18 cases. So we've had an additional 18 cases since we've implemented the universal masking, an equal amount. However, it's been fewer days.
And I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kathy, when there was those 18 cases before universal masking, we had about 356 kids that were out on quarantine as close contact? 256. 256? Thank you.
That's a lot. Vertically challenged. So we did not have, when we went to universal masking, we did not have cases for 2 weeks. We started our cases this weekend, and we've actually had a surge the last 2 days. So we've had like 7 cases. So most of our cases have been over this long weekend. In terms of the amount of quarantines, a bunch of our cases have had 0 close contacts because they have been within families. So we have a couple, 3 or 4 students that are within a family becoming positive. We've only had to put 22 students currently in one building on 3 different cases, and then about 10 others on another case.
So about 32 kids.
32
So
students.
basically, you just proved my point. When they're outside of school is when they're getting it.
Please,
So we can't do anything about it because every place that kids go except for school, they're not masking.
But our job is to keep kids in school.
Right. So
It's not our jobs,
Wait a
but the
minute,
point
quiet,
is.
please. This is not a
Excuse me,
time
the
for
point
for
is that
discussion.
kids are being masked in school, but not out of school.
Sir,
and we're still seeing the same number of
if you would
cases,
please-
masked or non-masked. Get rid of them.
Please. This is the time for board member comments, not for a battle back and forth. So are there any other members who would like to make a comment? I would make one, and my comment is I would like to echo the thank you to the community members who showed the support for our staff last Friday. I hear about it at the American Legion. The planning was going on and how successful they thought it were and how excited they were to be able to go and do it. And so I would like to but to thank them also for the effort they put forth to recognize the staff for the work that they're doing. So with that said, we move on to 10.2, entertain a motion to enter to executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056A, evaluation of the superintendent.
So moved.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? So at this time, we are in executive session. Everybody will have to leave. Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor?